ensayas rápido, no te sabes con el pie. Lo ensayas rápido, no te sabes con el pie.
Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
I'm Paul Ogden.
We are coming to you from the Indy Cigar Bar at 3357 East 86th Street in Indianapolis, right across 86th Street from the Fashion Mall. Our guests are Abdul, who is an attorney and political commentator, and Lindsay Grace of Smoke Free Indy, and we are discussing the recent ordinance that was passed by Indianapolis City-County Council that takes effect June 1st that restricts smoking in most public establishments, or eliminates it in most public establishments. What about the future?
I was getting ready to ask Lindsay about what are the future goals of your organization. Before I do, there is one issue I'm kind of curious about. I'm not that familiar with it. Why did the ordinance include e-cigarettes?
It's a good question, and it's something that was of lots of discussion.
And what is an e-cigarette?
So an e-cigarette is an electronic smoking device, basically, that has it's a little metal thing, and you can take it apart, and it allows you to insert these nicotine packets. Some of them contain nicotine, some of them don't. But it's basically an electronic form of a cigarette that's been put on the market within the past few years. It is somewhat of a new device. And the reason why there was so much discussion over this is because, A, they are so new, very little about them, and there are very few studies out right now. They sued the federal government to become issued as a tobacco product, so we believe that they need to be regulated as such. And right now, they cannot prove themselves that they are safe to not only the consumer, but to the person next to them. So until then, the City Council decided that they would err on the side of caution, and until we know more about these products before we allow them in our establishments.
And I think the claim is that they take in nicotine, they put out water vapor.
Correct. It's called vaping. But it looks a lot like smoke. So you were sitting out at the bar, you might not know if it was cigarette smoke or water vapor coming out, because it mimics that of a cigarette.
Different way of saying it was they erred on the side of limiting liberty, limiting freedom. Long-term goals. What is it that you're not done now, right? I mean, Smoke Free Indy is not satisfied with the ordinances as it is.
Well, for right now, we have to get this law on the books and implemented and evaluated correctly. So those are our long-term goals for right now within the next year or so, is to make sure we have a smooth implementation process of this, that every single bar, 300 of them, are educated on this, and they have the right materials to go through this process. And then we're going to evaluate the law to make sure that it's we'll do a public opinion poll that will judge how people in Indianapolis like the law. We always use a nonpartisan firm that is reputable, and we do it scientific. Then we will do an economic study like we did in 2007 as well that will evaluate if there are any economic impacts to this. And we'll do air monitoring studies as well to show that the air is clear and things like that. So there's still a lot of work to do even with this law before we even think about going into something stronger. But we also need to work on Speedway, Lawrence Beach Road, and Southport as well, because there will be a lot of confusion in regards to you can smoke on this side of 16th Street and not on this side. So those are our immediate, somewhat long-term goals for right now.
So your organization is Smoke Free Indy, but it's also the Indianapolis general areas, statewide. I mean, how is it that?
Smoke Free Indy is a local coalition. I work for the American Lung Association and serve as chair. But yes, we primarily only do Indianapolis, but Marion County, in all of Marion County.
Off air, we were talking just before we started shooting. Abdul mentioned enforcement. How is this law going to be enforced? I have concerns that
if passes prologue, don't expect a whole lot of tickets to be written. I was on the phone with the city prosecutor's office earlier this week in preparation for our discussion today. In the past 2.5 years, since code enforcement, all the city's sort of findability was sort of consolidated to code enforcement, there's not been enforced violation of the current city smoking ban. Now, prior to that, it was health and hospital.
It still is health.
And sort of a myriad of different places, but code enforcement has never had to go and prosecute somebody, for smoking in, a place where there wasn't supposed to be smoking. So it'll be interesting to see, who gets a ticket written. And I honestly believe
What is
that.
the fine?
So it will work two ways. Now that we do have Department of Code Enforcement, which is new under this administration, they are written into the enforcement of this current ordinance. But for the majority, the enforcement will stay the same, and that's through the Marion County Public Health Department, the Foods Division. So if you have a food license, they will come in here on their inspections, and also there's a public hotline as well that happened in 2006 as well. So if you're witnessing a violation, there's a number to call. The Foods Department will come out and inspect that. So that enforcement angle, cigar and hookah bars will be primarily done by Department of Code Enforcement. This establishment will have to get their application license through Department of Code Enforcement and meet all the requirements, etc. But enforcement will primarily stay the same. In the beginning, it will be general education. And we want to make sure that these places understand the law. But if they are known to be in serious violations on purpose and are just outright blatantly disregarding the law, they start at $100 for the first calendar year. If you have two within the same calendar year, it's $200 and goes up exponentially from there. Now, if you find that you're just not going to follow the law, the Foods Department can take away your food license. And they've done that with an establishment in downtown Indianapolis. That's what they eventually threatened to do. And they said, okay, we're going to follow the rules now. But
Can they take away your liquor license?
the Department of Health cannot take away your
No, the Department of Health can't take away liquor
because
license.
they
Only
don't-
alcohol control board. The control board can
But
take it.
in order to serve alcohol, you must serve food. So it's sort of the same thing.
And coffee.
And coffee,
Yeah,
or
sure.
wherever you would like. So
I-
taking away their food license would essentially shut them down business.
So if I have a bar, wouldn't it be, and I think you spoke to this, I could say, well, I'm just going to pay the $100 fine.
And some of them do that, and some
Well, the
places.
tip jar is.
Right.
The tip jar.
Some of them do that. They're very, very few and far between. Last time in 2006, we saw 36 complaints. And we're talking about hundreds, thousands of restaurants in Indianapolis. And most people and most business owners are law-abiding citizens. Just because they're smokers doesn't mean they can't follow the rules. So enforcement is typically always easy. So Randy's going to do a large public education campaign with media. We're working with the mayor's office in Indianapolis Downtown Inc. and the ICBA to get the city and our visitors ready for this. So we don't think there'll be any problems with enforcement.
And the other thing, too, to keep in mind is that this rule treats everybody the exact same way, is that there's no cigarette smoking basically anywhere. So even at a cigar bar like this, although McCrory has a rule, no cigarettes, because Corey can't stand cigarettes, that's the rule in all cigar bars, all hookah bars. Cigarettes are treated exactly the same, no matter where you go.
And which is an anomaly in terms of the argument as far as secondhand smoke is concerned. Because secondhand smoke, whether it's a cigar or a cigarette, is going to be the same. Actually, my cigar probably.
I would disagree. My cigar is probably healthier than somebody's cigarette because my cigar is pure tobacco. No additives, no preservatives, no rat poison.
So's mine.
Yeah. Because I got the Davidoff back there. I'm with highbrow.
Well, my cigars come from really good places that grow cigars, and I won't go into.
Well, the reason for that is really that if you can prove that you are true to your business interest lies in that of tobacco, cigars, and hookah, that you need to prove that, and not from the sale of cigarettes or the smoking of cigarettes.
No, and I agree. And this is where it may surprise people. I agree with Lindsay that putting a humidor at the end of your bar and some Swisher Sweets in there, like, hey, we're a cigar bar. No, you're not.
No, but wait a second. The same thing applies, though, in terms of the door opens, smoke escapes, and people are harmed. And so I get this feeling after having seen developments in New York City on their ordinances that your organization isn't really all that happy with, that there's more to get.
Well, it's unfortunate that we have exemptions because you see now the bars are mad at the private clubs, have an exemption, and they are the ones who now want all or nothing because they essentially believe that a private club will act the same way. It's a bar, you go in there and drink, and they serve food.
In other words, people are choosing to go someplace to do business or to socialize and to relax that's contrary to what your organization would like.
No,
Lindsay?
it's not a matter of what we like and don't. I was speaking for the bars, and that they now feel that the law should be all or nothing, so it's fair to all those.
Because you basically split the public so that they don't get the clientele that they once had.
We
So I
did
can
not.
guarantee.
We wanted everything, and the council made that distinction.
Oh, because people insisted that there be exemptions because people still wanted to smoke, and incrementally you're getting that.
But
I can guarantee that the American Legion in Broad Ripple is going to be one of the most popular places for the next couple of years to go and have a drink.
See, but I
I think you'd be surprised.
See,
The private clubs in Illinois are booming and expanding, while the ones here are shriveling and dying for business. And all the private
What is
clubs
a
in
private
Illinois.
club?
So
What's
it's
the
a
definition of private club?
So yeah, you can't just be like Chumley's and all of a sudden decide
say, here,
that
pay
they
a
want-
dollar to come in the door and you're a private
Right.
club.
So it has to be federal non-for-profit guidelines, which takes years to get.
And you had to also had to be in existence for like 2-3 years prior to.
Right. And we write it that way or provide that technical assistance to the council so that we don't have places like Scotty's. They have a mug club, so they could say that they are a private club. So it's non-for-profit, federal tax guidelines.
501c3, and it doesn't take years to get that. But that's
You have to have an established membership list for a certain amount of years, so it actually does take that.
not
For a private club.
maybe on a private club, but not on a 501c3.
Right, for a private club it does.
Yeah. So the future is this. Are we going to see any kind of an effort to stop smoking in private homes?
Not from Smoke Free Indy, you won't, or not, I can only speak for the American Lung Association. So no, we would encourage people not to smoke in their homes, and I think there is a trend towards that. The studies, the reports that come out year after year, we do find that a lot of adults are now choosing to smoke outside their homes, either for their spouse or for their children, but it's not something that we would ever ask for to regulate by government policy. It's not something we've ever advocated for.
I've been a cigar smoker for almost 20 years. I can only name one time I actually had a cigar in the house, and then I said I would never do it again because it took forever to get the smell of the smoke out. And the lovely Mrs. Shabazz said, you can keep your cigar habit, it just ain't happening in here.
So hotel rooms are all non-smoking now, or will be too first?
Yep, and same by statewide law as well.
And I'm sorry, that's kind of an irony there because we stayed down in the Marriott at Covington, Kentucky. We'd always go down there to see Reds games because the tickets were cheap because the Reds suck. Marriott went smoke free, and so we didn't realize that. We got down there. That was the last time we stayed there. But I'm standing out on the balcony watching the river traffic go by, and the redolent smell of the sweet, sickening scent of burnt rope rose to my nostrils. People were smoking joints out on the balconies, and the rooms were non-smoking, but that was kind of an irony because that's illegal. There was no real effort to limit that, but I couldn't have a cigar out there. And I just thought that was rather...
Well, you can't smoke weed inside or outside legally in any establishment.
Oh, no, I'm a lawyer. I'm aware of that, but the people around me certainly were oblivious to any restraint in that regard. It's been a pleasure.
I didn't see. You see if you saw the signal.
Well, I saw it with my stopwatch too.
Oh.
This has been a fun show today. Abdul, Lindsay, we've talked about the anti-smoking ordinance that was passed here in Marion County.
And I just want to, before we wrap up here, Lindsay and I know each other for years. I love her to death like my little sister. This is just an issue where we just respectfully agree to disagree. I think they have the best public interest at heart. At the end of the day, I just think the free market individuals could probably do this a little bit better than the government.
And
Thank you.
thank you very much for both being on, Paul. As always, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to join us next week. We're going to be talking about the elections. Take care.